Welcome back to Raised by Giants live discussion. Welcome everyone in the chat. Good to see you guys and any moderators out there and or channel members. Today we have returning guest Ryan Burns, but a quick reminder, super chats and super stickers are available and will be read out live during the show. If you have any questions that you would like addressed or any comments that you would like addressed, that is the best way to get them answers. Send in those super chats, and buy me a coffee links and PayPal links are also in the description and are a great way to help support the show and my work. And also Ryder Ranger channel memberships are available and is really the best way to help support the show monthly for less than a cup of coffee. And if you become a Ryder Ranger channel member, you get access to bonus episodes, and there's a huge back catalog of Ryder Ranger channel membership videos. So sign up to be a Ryder Ranger channel member today. You can click the little icon that says join right by the description of the channel on under this video, or I might be able to drop one in the chat here soon. But anyway, with that down, we have with us today the host of the acclaimed podcast Hero Paranormal, who has written about his experiences investigating the Skinwalker and owns property close to Skinwalker Ranch. Ryan Burns, welcome back. How's it going, my friend?
You here as always, Ryder. Thank you.
Man, I'm going to get me some sunglasses, dude. I need to be doing these shows in sunglasses, bro. I need to get cool like you, dude.
100%. Yeah, like, I looked into, do you know Casey Neistat?
This name sounds familiar, but I couldn't place him.
Yeah, he's like a big YouTube personality, filmmaker, vlogger, co-founder of... Anyway, I used to get all my electric skateboards through him, and he always wore the dark sunglasses. And he wears them because he says that his therapist told him that he can be more himself with dark sunglasses, because then he's keeping, the windows to the soul private, but yet his persona is still online and he can like share openly, but the windows to his soul are like sacred and like held, he has something to keep for himself, but because he's on YouTube like all the time. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I noticed that like these darn lights that you use, or I have to use in my office, started to give me headaches. And I'm like, I'll just start wearing sunglasses. And yeah, the headaches went away. So I don't know, maybe it's a catch-22, a win-win.
It is kind of like a confidence builder, right? Like you feel more confident when you're wearing a pair of sunglasses, people can't see into your eyes. You can just kind of say whatever you want to say.
You could be an advanced cybernetic machine.
Yeah, you could. And no one would ever know, dude. You just got the sunglasses on.
That's right.
Because I think that is true. Like the windows to the soul are like through the eyes. And that's my theory of what a lot of the facial recognition software is used for, is to track the eyes, because it's not so much the face as it is, your eyes. If they can figure out what your eyes do and the symmetric and all the details of your eyes, which I have a really weird eye. My left eye is, I was shot in the eye with a BB gun when I was 13, and it split my pupil in half. So
dang.
I might be protected from the facial recognition software. I don't know, dude.
That's a good point. And, eye tracking is huge. That's what they're watching when we're on our phones, on our devices. They're seeing where the eyes go so they can upload where your attention is being drawn.
Yeah, TikTok is all over that, dude. Which is weird with TikTok right now, like with that TikTok ban and stuff. Like, I don't know if you have a TikTok. I have one, but it's on a separate phone. I don't use my actual everyday phone that I use. I have a separate phone for TikTok. And the algorithms are super weird now, dude. Like, it's not throwing you all the views like it used to. Like, I have several videos on there that have like hundreds of thousands of views and like a lot of likes and a lot of comments and stuff, mostly involving like space and like NASA and stuff like that, and the moon and all that. People love moon stuff for some reason.
Yeah.
Anything to do with NASA, it's like they're like all over it. It's so weird.
They trust NASA so much. I had it's a necessary evil, but a necessary evil. The I had a TikTok for Space Wolf research, and it blew up. It was getting tons of views. People in, LA and Hollywood were contacting me about like stuff and had all these TV show offers, and everything was going great. And then I got a call from a scientist that goes out there, and he said, you got to get rid of that TikTok account. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's blowing up. And he's like, yeah, the problem is the policies on TikTok, it will reveal so much to Chinese intelligence about, the working groups that might be on your property, that this is too much of a liability. It becomes like a national security concern. And that's kind of why they're banning TikTok anywhere. Actually, it's a national security concern. So really strange. So yeah, I was super bummed, and but I hacked it. I just got rid of it. It's axed. It's gone.
Well, that's another thing about it too, is it almost seems like that the United States is super jealous of TikTok, and they're like, "Oh well, if we can't control it, then nobody can have it." It's kind of like the monopoly thing that the United States has over really everything, over war, over propaganda, like over all of it. If like the United States can't control it, then nobody can have it. No one can control it, and that's pretty much what they've done. And they just turned it to where I think TikTok has a certain amount of time to sell it to an American company. So I think it's a double-edged sword, and I think that not all of the information and the real reasons why they're trying to go through with the TikTok ban are really revealed, because there's so many different things that are baked into that whole case, the TikTok ban case. Like there's a lot. It's kind of like with everything. There's so many things that whenever you pass a policy or pass some sort of new law, or you're giving money to other countries or whatever, it's like there's so many different things that are baked into the documents that have absolutely nothing to do with the topic at hand, which has been the way they've done it for a long time.
It's always, I agree, man. There's always like these layers to the onion, and whatever they publicly come out and say, that's how they're selling it. But as you said, there's always this other verbiage and wording, and you realize that it's not about that at all. It's about something completely different. And it fascinates me how, why TikTok was, it's almost got like this doomsday clock appeal to it, like TikTok to what, like they're just like TikTok, TikTok. And I had a friend in the intelligence community that has to report back, and literally, poor guy, I love this guy, but he has to write down everybody that he hangs out with, everybody that he sees, explain what he's doing. And anyway, he said that one of the most controversial insider moves that China's done is TikTok, because you have even grandmas and stay-at-home moms and stuff getting on TikTok because of the recipes or because of all this stuff. And apparently, they are really gathering more information than anybody could ever expect. And same with DJI, the drone manufacturer. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah,
well, it's just interesting too, because with TikTok and the way that because I don't even get on there to even like scroll through anything. I don't watch anything on TikTok. I just get on there and I post the clips from my show, and then that's it. And then I get off. So any data or anything that if they're trying to track me on a different phone from TikTok, they probably got nothing, like zero. But I think that that's the concern, is that it's not only tracking what you're doing on that phone that you have TikTok downloaded on, but it's also tracking everything else that you do on that phone, like your text messages, the other apps that you use, your keystroke patterns, the way that you type, the types of things that you look up as well. And I think that that is a big concern for a lot of people, is that it's not only within the app, it's not only collecting what you're looking at and what you're watching and what you're liking and what you're commenting on, but it's also tracking everything else that you do on that phone as well. And I think I listened to Joe Rogan read out the terms and conditions for TikTok, and it not only says that they can do that, but they can also get information from other people's phones that's just in your area, that's just around you. So I might not have usurped the entire thing, but I at least made it a little bit harder on them, because you can't not utilize all the social medias, and it's kind of a pain in the ass when you have all these social medias. And I only do it just to promote my show, and I don't even know if it does any good. I don't know if anyone's actually even clicking those links to come over. They're probably not, and it seems like a really big waste of time on a lot of fronts. But it's like, if you don't have any kind of social media presence, then it's kind of like, what are you doing?
And that's the kicker. How do we know any of these numbers are real? I mean, think of what you will of Elon Musk and how real he is, whatever. But the fact that he showed how Twitter was padding their numbers, I mean, just imagine what a Chinese factory of data is doing with their numbers and the results, because you've probably noticed this. You start out with TikTok and you have huge results, and then they gradually come down. And it is, it almost seems like an automatic baiting of the hook to keep you coming back.
It is, but this isn't the first time that we've seen something like this. I mean, it happened with MySpace. The government wanted to come in and kind of control the types of information that was happening on MySpace. Tom was like, nah, get the crap out of here. And then they just created another social media, which was Facebook. Same thing happened with Vine. Vine was TikTok before TikTok was TikTok, and they collapsed that social media. It almost seems like whenever a social media comes out that it's not controlled from the very start, it inevitably gets like taken over. It's really weird. It's really strange. It gets shut down. The funding gets cut. People get into problems and get into issues. I mean, we've never really seen anything like this in the entire scope of our history. It's wild. But I also wanted to get into, this the kind of an AI discussion, because I just went to Contact in the desert, and I was kind of stunned by how many people really weren't talking about UFOs or extraterrestrial. I mean, yeah, it was kind of baked in to it, but what a lot of people were talking about was like artificial intelligence, and how maybe artificial intelligence is the real extraterrestrials, and maybe that artificial intelligence has just kind of been out there waiting, and then it's just kind of waiting to infiltrate in, and then it kind of gave us this technology to be able to create, and then it gave us the interface, and then we create the interface for AI, and then AI is like here to stay, which is a very interesting concept. And I think that what not a lot of people are talking about when it comes to AI is how this progression starts. Now we have AI that you have to prompt AI to do things, right? You have to, tell it. I would love a picture of Bugs Bunny wearing a cowboy hat, shooting a shotgun or whatever, and then it creates that. Well, what happens when AI can just create its own images, its own videos, and then produce those videos out on the internet? Right? That's going to create a lot of confusion. And that's something that, I mean, if it's not hard enough as it is figuring out what's real and what's not real, imagine AI being able to just create whatever it wants and put it out on the internet. That's a really big problem. That's a really big issue. And I don't think enough people are talking about that.
It's huge. And I think China and TikTok is a good segue for that, because China in particular seems to be really diving in headfirst into AI and robotics. And they have these, well, they're leaps and bounds ahead of us, and have major Western players like Tesla, Boston Dynamics, Figure, and Agility. Those developers are freaking out because of the lifelike skin, flexible movements of their robots, and the implementation of their patented AI and lightweight mechanical structures. They literally are saying that what they want is robots to be able to interact with tourists, with people at grocery stores, with anybody, and for the humans to not know the difference between these AI enhanced robots and another human. And this is fascinating because not only is it super interesting, but if it's evolving that quickly, the AI, we know for a fact that even, our largest player, I think, is Nvidia, who from all appearances and stock price, etc., um, is showing just how amazing AI, how quickly machine learning is actually making more AI. They can't even make the AI anymore. They have programs of AI to make more AI because it does it more successfully. And it's almost like they've opened Pandora's box. Just as you said, we've opened it up. We don't know where it's headed, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, and how far does it go? I mean, people have this idea of what AI is and that it's going to take over the world, and they just like leave it at that. They don't really explain the infancy of it and how it would start to do that. And I think that that first step would be to create fake artificial images, fake artificial video, so sophisticated that you can't tell the difference. I think there's someone that was just in the chat that said that oh yeah, Noble Truth just said, I had an AI create some very realistic crop circles. That seems like that's the first step of a AI takeover, right? We're in the infancy steps of it. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen because nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but that seems to be the direction that it could get to the point where there's no prompts that are being put in to activate this AI to create an image for you or a video or whatever. It's just doing it on its own, and it's uploading it to the internet, and it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. I mean, I know a guy who's ordered a Tesla robot, and he's bummed out that he didn't wait because he wants to get one from a Chinese startup called EX Robots or X Robots, which is really strange because they were established in 2009. And you remember that movie, was it Ex Machina? And this startup is called X Robots, but it's EX. But they specialize in, like you're talking about, the manufacture, development, research, sales, and service of bionic, which means they're stronger than us, intelligent AI enhanced robots. And they seem to be way better than the Tesla robot coming out. And I mean, talk about advanced cybernetic machinery. We are literally talking about, well, I mean, what good are we going to be? It's one thing to keep the AI on the screen. And I think that the magic has always been on the screen. Back in the times of John Dee and Edward Kelly, they basically, they were scrying, which is a technology in a sense, getting information from a type of AI. It was an intelligence that has no human casing, no meat suit. But, again, dark screens, much like our devices, our iPads, our iPhones, and our laptops. However, now, as soon as it's coming out of the screen and entering the real world, and it has a vehicle which enhances it, it's starting to get a little bit scary with examples like Sophia. And, I wonder, should we be letting this magic, for lack of a better word, or technology, as Arthur C. Clarke puts so well, any advanced technology, at a certain point, it appears as magic. And that's kind of, in my eyes, I don't know enough about it. I'm not a computer scientist. And to me, it appears like magic. And I run into it all the time, and even creating images online, it horrifies me how, where you put your focus, like you said, you give it just a few simple commands and it takes it from there.
That's right. And then when you think of possession and like demonic possession, does that not, would that not be what you would do if you were like an advanced AI system that didn't have any kind of technology to get into? would you not try and possess a, I mean, this is hypothetical, of course. We're going hypothetical on this one. Would you not try and possess a organic being and implant that organic being with thoughts and ideas and how to create something for it to inhabit? Then that's where we get this technological boom. Right? It's from this AI infiltrating into an organic being and then giving it all these ideas and the way to make this technology for it. I mean, would that not make sense? It makes more sense to me than an extraterrestrial, right? And then you could consider that AI an extraterrestrial. It is it would technically be an entity, maybe not a physical entity. I mean, that makes more sense to me than some physical being coming down here and crashing their craft. And you, like you were talking about with Edward Kelly and what was the other guy that you brought up?
Oh yeah, John D. Yeah,
John D. And Edward Kelly. You know, that's where a lot of the channeling stuff comes from. You know what? And these things are deceivers too. Like they don't tell you the truth. They're deceivers. I mean, and you can see that easily with how further out that they move into the galaxy. You know, some of the first people that were supposedly channeling things, they would say that they were from Mars or Venus or whatever, and then now they're from the freaking Palladian star system, the Zeta Reticuli. They're liars. They're not telling you the truth. So would that not be a manipulation from some sort of advanced AI system that is infiltrated into the minds of people to have them try and create this technology for them so that they can, I mean, and that gets into like, you know, advanced human cyborgs, like making entities outside of the womb, you know, like cloning and like all that kind of stuff. Like instead of being able to have to infiltrate into somebody's mind, they can just create a inorganic biological being and then have that AI consciousness into the inorganic biological being, and then it can live a life. I mean, Alex Jones was talking about this on Joe Rogan, like that his dad was working on these cyborg humans back in like the 80s and into the 90s.
You know, I'm really glad that you brought up clones there in that comment, because this kind of ties in to extraterrestrials. And I'm sure you've heard of the Raelians. You have an expansive, view of a lot of these ET cults, these alien cults. The Raelians, specifically Rael, the guy
I
that
did a
was
whole
the
show on
president.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah, he
founded-
said that an extraterrestrial Elohim ship contacted him, and he went to their planet, and these Elohim extraterrestrials told him how they live forever, and it's like through cloning.
It's through cloning. That's the crossfire, dude. You nailed it. I mean, and they started a business that they claim to have cloned, I think it's 17 people, which is highly illegal. But they started something called Clonade, which is like, don't drink the Clonade. Like, what's the joke there? But they claim that these clones, that's as you said, that's the key to immortality, and that these extraterrestrials are telling them this. And 100%, groups like the United Nations, the if you look at the Bilderberg group and what they're talking about on the agendas, you can get links where it talks about they have it online now. And aside from upcoming events, the number one priority is artificial intelligence. And they are very much trying to push for transhumanism, and they want to get an in-depth view of basically how they can incorporate AI, transhumanism, robotics, clones, whatever the case may be. They want to implement this into our daily lives, because the United Nations knows that if they can push this, if they can make it, it's almost there. I mean, it's almost there. It's so dystopian already. But if they can make it to where we are completely helpless, we can't feed ourselves, we can't do anything for ourselves, we can't reproduce, we can't go out and find what we need on a daily basis to survive, then they literally have us exactly where they want us. And step by step, little by little, they're getting there. It used to be no big deal. If the supply chain closed down, no big deal. You go next door, that farm has a cow, you have goats, both of you have a still, you can run your tractors, you got a well on the property, it has water. You really don't need the government. They're just there to take a portion of your paycheck. Now, people live not only paycheck to paycheck, but meal to meal. And now with EVs, it's like literally supercharge to supercharge. And as long as they can corral us in these 15-minute cities and get this evil agenda of pushing transhumanism, and a lot of people, even people in major world religions, like I won't name them because they'll just get angry at me. But the bottom line is all world religions have a sect within them that are pushing this transhumanist agenda, and robots, clones, AI, and robotics are all part of that mix.
Well, yeah, and then also the subsidized farming. It's a huge. It's a scam to me in a lot of different ways, in a way for control and to control everyone's actions and everyone's moves. But then you get into, well, if everyone is just complete cyborg. Well, this is another thing too, is that what Rael was talking about was whenever he went with these Elohim on the ship, that he would also have sex with these Elohim robots. Right? They would just have like sex orgies
everywhere. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's like such a mind blower. He's got like hot chicks surrounding him at all times. He's like an ET cult leader, Dan Bilzerian style, with like just all these hot babes. You wonder, but sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. So the Elohim. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just making sex robot slaves up on the Elohim ships, apparently.
Super enticing from a cult leader perspective. I mean, why do you join a cult? That's always one of the aspects. What do the chicks look like? Oh, these chicks are pretty hot. And, that's definitely on the bucket list, having an orgy on a flying saucer. But I mean, give me a break. The guy, he's been in the picture, in the mix for so long and been this controversial guy. And you hear him talking. He's a nice guy. This is the weirdest part. He's just like hot babes, ETs, spaceships. I mean, he sells it. And I think, when you take a deeper look into the secrets behind his religion, which is named after him, he's not only an epic cult leader, but he's very much in line with, this push for artificial intelligence, robotics, even the Vatican, the Jesuits, the New World Order, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations. These guys are all pushing the same agenda, but he's making it seem kind of rebellious, cool, and fringy, but it's really just the same agenda.
Yeah, he's making it seem sexy. Yeah, like, don't you want amazing looking sex robots that you can take advantage of all the time, 24/7? And that's another thing too, is like, well, if you have nothing but like robots, then they aren't really humans. And you can do whatever you want to them, technically. And then that gets into the question, what is a human? If they look identical to what we look like, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between a human and a augmented cybernetic human, because I think at first glance, what makes us a human is our body structure and like what we look like. When you see somebody that looks like you, you're like, oh, well, that's a human. For sure, that's a human. There's no doubt about it. It's got the skin, it's got the features, it's got the nose, the mouth, it poops, it eats, it has sex, it does all the things that a human does. So then it gets into, well, can you even tell the difference between a cybernetic human cyborg or a real human? And then what is the morality between the two? I mean, there's been several movies that's been made off of that concept, but it is really interesting. There's even a movie on Netflix. That's Michael Pena in it. It's a really interesting movie. I would highly recommend people checking it out. I've talked about it before on the show, where there's this extraterrestrial attack, like aliens come from off the planet, and they're like blowing up cities, and they're like doing all this stuff. Well, it turns out that the extraterrestrials really aren't extraterrestrials. They're humans, and the people on Earth are all cyborgs. And the humans had to leave Earth, regroup, and then they're coming back and attacking to take back over Earth from the cyborgs. But the cyborgs thought that they were humans
Mm-hmm.
and that these beings were extraterrestrials. It's wild. It's a mind screw.
I think it's legit. A lot of the esoteric and the occult is shockingly incorporated into the technology. And it brings me back to that Arthur C. Clarke quote. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, because why is it always the same features? You know, the dark mirrors that are being used. Why is it that the first Apple computer sold for $666.66? Why is it that we see these robot factories, these AI factories, are as compartmentalized as the top secret military installations? It is because no one person knows how to develop, and they don't realize all of the different stages. They only handle one perspective of this fractal entity that they're creating, these lifelike robots or this AI. They're very compartmentalized. And there's a reason, because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the esoteric, the magic, and the technology are all one. There's an astrobot humanoid, which is, again, coming out of China. They call it the astrobot humanoid robot that can run at 33 feet per second, invoking that number 33. And that's super deadly fast. But the point is, you just keep seeing all these same numbers, these same algorithms. And, as I was talking to a guy the other day, and he's like, isn't it strange how, your devices are so high tech apparently, but they get one little drop of water in them and totally, they're useless. When the old school technology, like the Nokia handheld cell phones, you could do anything. You could use them as a weapon and they would continue to work. And it's because there's been a stop from one technology and entering into this new technology that is having issues with the very basic fundamental, things like a droplet of water can just completely ruin the whole device. I
But
don't know.
is that done on purpose though, or is that like
Oh,
I
100%.
feel
I
like
think,
that's done on purpose because they want consumerism. They want people to go out and buy the newest and latest phone all the time, so they make them really crappily. Like you drop it, it breaks really quickly. You dunk it in just a tad bit of water, then you have to go buy a new one. It's kind of like the light bulb conspiracy. I'm sure you know about the light bulb conspiracy, where they have a light bulb that's been running for like freaking 100 years or some shit, and it's still running. But they all came together, like all the light bulb companies, and was like, hey, we can't be making light bulbs that last freaking 100 years because no one will ever buy light bulbs again.
yeah.
And we got to be making money. So we can't be making things that last a long time. And that's the degeneration of our technology and the things that we use. And then the other side of that is the consumerism aspect and the commercials and the people that are pushing you toward the latest and best and greatest thing over and over again. You got to have the newest and latest whenever last year's thing was just as good or maybe even better.
It's all part of the temptation. And there's that secret psychology of, I'm picking on Apple, but they're an obvious, obvious target, given the fact that, they have an apple as their symbol with the bite out of it, alluding to the Garden of Eden and wanting knowledge. And basically taking of the forbidden fruit, all that's on purpose. There's a reason why Steve Jobs was a fruitarian and would eat apples for weeks at a time, or carrots, but the bottom line is there's a secret psychology of Apple packaging where even the packaging, they've noticed the marketing, people don't throw away the boxes because they see some perceived value even in the packaging. Something as useless as the box, because it's this marketing magic, this perceived value. When you can get a cheap Chinese mimic replica that will do everything the same as your Max AirPods, or many of the devices, but you keep the packaging because it is something magical to you. That slow opening of the box, you can almost hear the air as you open the box. And I think that it's really there are hints in all of the ancient texts that have to do with magic, with religion, the occult, philosophy even. But the bottom line is there is a secret psychology taking place with this advanced technology, that it very much is entering into the aspect of magic. Advanced cybernetic machines are nothing more than trinkets that we see as something that will work for us, help us, not realizing that a device is device. This is the addiction. This is the vice that will consume us, right? It's like anything. It's like, if everybody could, just have their life. I would love to have a clone. Are you kidding me? I would put that sucker to work doing all kinds of stuff. It would be so nice. But first I would want one, then I would have another, then I'd have another. And it kind of brings us back to that, the Hindu legend of Brahma, the Hindu god. And the same is true of El, the creator god, where he got bored. And the Hindu god Brahma had to literally, he got so bored being in complete control that he wanted to experience things differently. And he made he split himself, or made a clone of himself, which then made a clone of himself, which then made a clone of himself. And we realize that to experience more, this is done, but it turns into something catastrophic. And we have the same example with like El, the creator god, making, Baal, who wasn't exactly the best deity to make, and making Yam and Mot and all these other entities to kind of like lessen the workload, while he can kind of be the absentee landlord and step away from the world, giving the Gnostics, the true, in my opinion, belief that we have kind of an absentee landlord God, this demiurge idea and philosophy that, yeah, if he can do it, if we can do it, as soon as we are creative and godlike, we will do the same thing. And I think it warns us of this in many texts. It's just wild that it's so controversial and so basic. But yeah, 100%. Would I take a clone? At first, my answer would be heck yes. He could mow the lawn, he could clean the pool, he could take the kids to school. But I think it would be, after a while, we would realize
But isn't that what you have kids for, though? Kids are technically a little clone.
That's why farmers have 12 kids, right?
That's right. That's exactly what it is. Amanda says, what's the name of that show on Netflix? It's called Extinction. Extinction. It's a movie with Michael Pena. Highly recommend it. Really good movie. But this light bulb thing, just to clear this up really quickly, the Continental Light, the world's longest lasting light bulb, is a Continental Light located on 4550 East Avenue, Livermore, California, and is maintained by the Livermore Fire Department. The fire department claims that the light bulb is at least 121 years old, installed in 1901, and has only been turned off a handful of times. So that's the light bulb conspiracy. And also, you're talking about these ancient old gods and stuff, and when you look at them too, like the Sumerian kings list and this whole long reign of these periods of these gods, some of them, like, I don't even know what the longest one was, but at least 15,000 years some of these gods reigned. And my first thought was, well, maybe they calculated time differently. Maybe they weren't on the same time scale that we consider a year now. Maybe it's shorter. Maybe 3 months is a year to them, or 6 months is a year to them. Then you think, oh, well, if that's not the case, then how did they live so long? Did everyone live that long, or was it just these high up rulers, these kings of the land that lived this long? Then you think too, well, you have all these like burial chambers and like these weird sarcophagi within a lot of the megalithic structures across the world, like these big things that weigh tons and tons, and who knows how they even got them in through all these shafts and all that. I mean, there's big sarcophagi underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza, submerged in water. There's two of them, and there's like this little chamber that has all kinds of really heavy sarcophagi there. And there's been theories and speculations of what they were used for. Some people think that it was like a meditative state, a deprivation type thing. But then when you like look at like Thoth and some of these ancient Egyptian gods and stuff, and it's interesting because maybe the cloning thing isn't something that's even new. It might be something in very old technology, and it might be the reason how and why some of these people that are in the Sumerian Kings list lived so long. That maybe they were creating another being, and they would shed that skin suit. They would put it in like this hibernation tank, and maybe that's what these sarcophagi are used for, is like a hibernation to heal that body for a certain period of time while they are out running around in a different body. And then when that body gets old and it starts to break down, they put that body in one of these healing tanks and then get another one. It's fascinating. Maybe.
It is, and it's right along this. It is exactly part of the same plot. I mean, literally, what you're talking about, going back to Set in Egyptian times and Setianism, which is very arguably Satanism, and Michael Aquino is a great example of that, coming up with the Temple of Set, an offshoot from the Temple of Satan, where he just kind of said, well, I'm going to rewind the tape a little bit back to more ancient version of Satanism, which was Setianism. And it's, under the same satanic umbrella because it has the same history. And because, let's face it, the cult of Baal, this is basically the same long, strange religion that was back in the times that you're talking about. And lo and behold, Michael Aquino is argued by many of those. For those who are unfamiliar, he was an intelligence asset here in the United States, very high level, top secret intelligence officer. And he was the founder of the Temple of Set, which was this Satanist church. And he, according to many, took part in something called the Red Rite, which was, when he was later in life, the Red Rite was literally kind of a magical cloning where you get a pregnant donor, an already pregnant woman, and at a certain point in her pregnancy, you do this magical incantation where you place the hand on her belly and you commit suicide and basically upload your consciousness into the forthcoming child to be reborn, but to keep all the knowledge of this existence, which is exactly what the Egyptians wanted, right? They had no problem with the reincarnating. They just didn't have to want to learn everything over again. They wanted to, hit the ground running, maintaining all the data that they had incorporated, learned, and encompassed in their minds from this incarnation. And that is very much along the lines of the transhumanist agenda. They want to live forever. It's the same thing.
That is very interesting, and that just reminded me of I've heard that before, that can be done. That you can, I don't know when it is in the pregnancy or when it can happen, but apparently it's a thing.
Yeah, it
And
reminds me
I
of that.
think that
Yeah.
they're definitely doing that again, but not in that type of fashion. Because I mean, how nice would it be, Ryan, to carry over all of your all the information that you've gathered, your life experiences from this life into another life, and automatically know all of it and not freak out.
It
You
would
know,
be
I mean,
so nice. It would be
that would be
so nice.
amazing. If you
Yeah.
wanted to be here for a long amount of time, then that would be the way to do it. Then you would learn. You would eventually, at some point, become a god. 100%. If you lived long enough, you would become a god. Absolutely,
Hmm.
in the flesh. And that gets into what was I don't want to bring religion into the discussion, but yeah, I have heard that before with
Yeah.
being able to transfer your consciousness into a baby, but I'm not for sure. It might have to be something within your bloodline. I think it has to be like a relation to you in some sort of way. I don't think that you can just do it with any pregnant lady or pregnant woman.
And interestingly, Michael Aquino did commit suicide, and he did it at a time when he was older. He was in his 80s, and everything was going great. It was not like the rest of his life that was, very, chaotic. It was in a very peaceful time. He had plenty of money, he had plenty of peace, everything was going well, and then randomly committed suicide, and many allege that it was due to the red right. But it brings me back, to again, this I love the number 322. I think there's a reason Skull and Bones uses it, but I'm always reminded of Genesis 322, which is, then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us. And he's talking to the Elohim, his creations, in my opinion. I won't go into my opinion, but behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. Now, lest he reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. And that's exactly what he's talking about. Oddly, in the Garden of Eden, the tree that they're talking about is arguably, the apple, knowledge. And, what do they say? An apple a day keeps the doctor away. You can live forever. And there's a reason why Steve Jobs was eating apples and carrots like crazy. He knew that, in my opinion, again, I allege that he knew some of these long lasting plots that were devised through the millennia. He was a fruitarian. Everybody knew it. And he knew that eating this stuff, you could live forever. Oddly, he got some very random, karmically, some very rare cancer, a very different type of pancreatic cancer that even today we don't know how to treat. And I don't think it was because of his diet, but maybe he knew something. And it's very strange that we have these same topics come up over and over again synchronistically. It's almost like an algorithm, back to the apple. And there's nothing wrong with eating apples. You can literally live on apples, and they hydrate you, they have tons of antioxidants, and it is simple. You don't get diabetes. It lowers your blood sugar. It levels everything out. But at the same time, the apple is also that forbidden fruit, lest he reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. They're talking about the knowledge, the technology. That forbidden fruit, in my opinion, is very much transhumanism. It is technology.
Well, the occult also mentions that, well, in a lot of occult teachings and philosophy and theology, is that the consciousness of the entity, well, the person that you're incarnating into, doesn't incarnate into the baby until the umbilical cord is cut. I think that's a pretty common thing. So it's a very narrow window of opportunity to
Super narrow. It's a dark, there's a reason they call it the red right. It's pretty dark and super taboo and fringe. I've looked into it, and various philosophers and academics and theorists theorize as to what takes place, but it's super dark, man. It's kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, but it's a
Yeah.
cloning, right? It's an uploading of consciousness, and it reminds me of that movie by Jordan Peele, Get Out, right? Which,
Mm.
this family has the secret of, grandpa can then go into this younger guy, and then, they're living forever. And that has always sort of been what these secret councils have literally wanted, is to live forever, because they do not want to atone for their sins. They want to continue sinning. They don't want to be judged. They want to judge others. And they invert the entire process that is inherently placed since the creation, since the beginning of time. And they're trying to flip the script, much like Set, himself.
Well, what if it's not as nefarious as people think that it is? What if it's more of like wanting to, create a better future? Because we all have a very limited amount of time here. I mean, a life expectancy is what, like 80 years old now? Is somewhere around. It's kind of been around that since the 20th century. Has been roughly around 80 years. Like, that is a microscopic amount of time, like very limited amount of time. And if people do know whenever you die and then whenever you come back, you don't come back with anything. It's like you're a new being. It's kind of like what I was saying is like, if you could choose to live another life, let's say you had to live another life, right? You had to come back and live. There wasn't any other option because there isn't anything else out there, no other place for you to go, which kind of makes sense to me if reincarnation is real and it's like a trap. The only reason that it would be a trap is because there's nowhere else to go. That's it. This is all there is. This place here. That's it. But let's just say that is a thing, and you have the option to live another life with the memories and the experiences that you had in this life. Would you not take it? I would take it. If I had to come back, 100% that I had to come back, I would choose to come back remembering this experience that I just had. That only makes sense. Why would I want to do it all over again and learn almost the exact same types of lessons? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of screwed up about whatever it is that we're on, is that if reincarnation is real, it just doesn't make any sense.
I think it's a twofold question, because the argument, I've heard both sides and I agree with you 100%. And I think that, you look at the Bible and you see that people lived so long. Now, arguably, they weren't poisoning each other on purpose with genetically modified food, water that had been recirculated 8 times over and had been in 8 people's toilets before you drank it and had fluoride in it. I mean, literally, they weren't killing each other with what they ingested at the time. There was clean air, clean water, clean food. Everything was fresh. But I think it's not just that. I don't think that's the whole deal. I think that also they were more in touch with the supernatural because they did not have, these devices. They did not have these devices that were distracting them from what really mattered, which was embracing the supernatural, seeing the little hints and clues in the cosmos, in the stars, on the ground, in the land, in the water. And I think, when you look at the lifespans of people mentioned biblically, actually in every text, whether it's the Torah, the Quran, they lived a long time because I argue that they were more connected and probably more aware of all the things you're talking about. They were seeing the subtle hints, the subtle clues, listening to the still small voice within their consciousness. And they probably did not have to come back as often because it was a slower pace. And this is something that you hear often. I think their lifetimes were similar to ours in that ours is a much more faster paced reality. Much like a dog only lives for, a fraction of what we live for, but they live a lot quicker. They love a lot harder. They eat a lot faster. They run a lot quicker. Everything is almost fast forward. And in this, it seems like every year, and I've been around 49 years, and I remember growing up and it seemed like a slower pace. And as time is progressing, it seems like the days go quicker. Yeah, I'm faster on my feet in some ways, but at the same time, I feel like I'm missing large chunks of that peace, that calm, that supernatural aspect. And that's kind of why I crave it, because it just seems like today's modern lifestyle demands everything to be fast. You have to be fast to be productive. It's all about production. And that's just not the truth. I think that is the evil seduction, is production.
I agree with that, and we see that in our community all the time. Like some people, like as soon as something happens, like people are like right on it, like quick, anything. They're like, oh, that blah 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 is over here, that over here. You know what I mean? And they're doing shows about it like almost instantly. They're not letting any time simmer in between there because they feel the pressure that they need to get it out and that they need to do it as quick as possible. And that's never really been my game. Like if something happens on a day that I'm happen to be doing a show, then I'll talk about it. But if it's not, then I don't worry about it. And then that also gets into like all kinds of, I was talking to several people about the Vatican documents. I just did a show the other day with Wayne Stagger on the Vatican documents. I was talking to some people and they were like, oh yeah, I did a show on that right when it came out, like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh well, cool. And it doesn't mean that I can't do a show on it now, And also with all the information, there's always more information that comes out the longer that a period of time in between it coming out and then, you doing a show on it. So you might be missing a lot of different angles and a lot of different aspects of that by putting out the content so quickly. But you're right in this way that everything is really fast paced and it's information overload. It's always something. It's got to be bright and flashy. And a lot of that I think has to do with people's attention spans. Like people don't have the attention span that to sit down and listen to something for a long period of time for some reason. They're always going to have something hooking and keeping their attention, which doesn't make any sense to me. If I like something and I like someone and I like what they're doing, I'm going to watch no matter what. And I'm going to watch till the end, or I'm going to listen till the end. Like I don't. And another thing is people think that everything has to be like perfect, like everything has to be like just laid out like perfectly. You got to articulate yourself in a certain kind of way. You got to make sure that you're right about every single little thing. And if you're not right about a certain thing, then you're like called out about it. It's so weird, this type of, society that we've created. It's so strange, like how everything has to be packaged up nice and neat in a little box with a bow on top of it. I mean, that's not how reality is, folks. It's not the way things go wrong. Things happen, bad things happen all the time. It's just a part of being here. It's just a part of being in reality. People mess up. People say things that they shouldn't say all the time. But that's the beauty of it. It's the beauty of being here.
I mess up all the time. I actually was, just today researching how I think I've been wrong about, blaming everything on the super class and the power elites, because I was looking at the word elite, like it's L-ite, those who follow El, the creator god, or the top cabal or capstone of society at any given moment. And the reality is, and we find this evidence often, that if there was a group that really was controlling everything, they would put it on some other group, right? They would put it on another group. And the more I look into it, I realize that it's really the cult of Baal. where, you know, these are the ones who have the characteristics, all the telltale signs, all of the plots, all of the evidence going back, as you said, to the pharaohs in ancient Egypt, to the Canaanites, to, you know, over and over again, the Khazars, the cult of Baal are the ones, when you take an in-depth look and looking back, it's not the elites always. You know, there are always some elites that are against them. But the cult of Baal seems to be that council, that group, that cult of worshiping, you know, immediate gratification. Baal, the entity Baal, the god Baal, very much is a transactional entity. You know, you charge me, you give me, you sacrifice something to me, I give you something in return right now. You know, it's like going and buying whatever it is you want. It's very material, it's very consequential. You know, he's the god of fertility. And when you take an in-depth look into some of the secrets behind a lot of the practices of the cult of Baal, whether that be black masses in Italy or going all the way back to ancient Egyptian times and prior, it's not always the elites who are the working group that should be blamed. It's really the cult of Baal, but instead they point to someone else and say it's always the elites. And I think, you know, I've been wrong about that in this great conspiracy theory that if, you know, that's a crab in the bucket mentality. If there's somebody higher than me, they're the one to blame. That's kind of a crab in the bucket mentality, instead of, you know, looking at who's carrying the bucket, right? There's somebody carrying the bucket. And time again, it's these entities, these plans, this selling, much like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, selling, you know, the apple, like, hey, take this. You'll know when you take this that you have knowledge. And, you know, Eve even says, you know, like, and the snake wasn't lying. He's like, are you dead? God said you would die. Are you dead? No. But I think they may, this is arguable, and biblical scholars get into this pretty heavy. They may have given up their immortality when they ate that. They weren't dying right then, but eventually they would. And again, so it's kind of a gray area, you know, that snake figure, that snake entity is always incorporated with knowledge. That's why on the caduceus, you have the staff and the snake, because that's medicine. That's how you live forever. That's how you escape death, is through knowledge. And he keeps popping up. The snake keeps popping up like, hey, I know a way out. Follow me. It's kind of transactional. You got to do something, but you'll get something. And the links, you know, are there. If you look back over time, you can connect the dots quite easily if you know the controversial stuff that you're looking for.
Absolutely, my friend. Circles within circles, snakes within snakes, my friend. That's how it rolls. But Ryan, I know you gotta head off and take care of some business. But thank you for coming on. Really appreciate your time this evening. Can you let people know where they can find you online?
100%. Thanks for having me on. I always love talking to you. You can catch more of me and my wild rantings at heroparanormal.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. The link to Ryan's website is in the description of this video. And one of these days, dude, I'm going to make it out to your ranch, bro. Been to you in Vegas, met up with you in Vegas, but we're going to get out to that ranch at some point.
Time to get dirty, time to get gritty out in the country.
But before the AI takeover, I'm going to come out to that ranch, bro.
Let's do it. Let's talk with Chris. I think he's coming out soon.
Yeah, I had heard that. I'm out in California right now. I don't know how long I'll be out here. I'm kind of really worried about the end of the year, but it is what it is. Thanks for being here, everyone. Good to see everyone. Thanks for contributing to the chat. Really appreciate you guys. And please be sure to hit the thumbs up button to help the channel and the algorithm. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. And I'll see you guys back on Thursday. Have a good rest of your evening. Bye-bye.